Hi everyone, we're going to cover DOM manipulation. You will be able to understand what is DOM manipulation. You will be able to understand the process of adding or removing elements from a DOM structure. You will be able to style your DOM elements as per your needs. And you would be able to figure out how to modify elements, element properties, and the elements by themselves. We will also be covering something called the jQuery filter. So let's begin. So one of the most important aspects of jQuery is DOM manipulation. Now, as in anything related to programming or computer science, there are four things that you can do to any particular object, and those are creating it, reading it, updating it, and deleting it. So adding or removing is creating or deleting, modifying is updating, copying or cloning is reading and then writing. So these are essentially the four fundamentals on which a lot of things are built on. So by manipulation, we simply mean that any changes, whether it's updation, creation, or deletion, or simply even reading it, those are any sort of DOM manipulations that are available to us. Now, there are certain simple methods to manipulate the content inside a DOM element. So one is the DOM element in itself, manipulating the DOM element in itself, and then even the content inside it. There are primarily three values. There are three ways. One is the text method to update the text inside our HTML. There is a HTML method to insert or update the HTML code inside an element. And then there is a value method, the val, which can get values from an input box or set values inside an input box. Now the difference between text and HTML is natural, that text is simple text, plain text, but with HTML you can actually place HTML inside your document. So let's quickly jump into an example. So what I've done here is that I've written some simple HTML. It's inside a container tag, right? There is a question, there is an answer box. The result is empty, right? Because the user hasn't answered a question till now. And then there is an answer over here. So we will show the result of what the user submitted as well as the correct answer. So, and over here, what I have done is that once the document is ready, I've set something called as a click listeners. Whenever the button is clicked, I want it to do certain things. So the first thing that it will do is that it will get the value from the answer box. And let me just open it up here so that we can compare side by side. So this line over here, answer box, it refers to this one, right? ID. We selected it .val. It gives us the answer. Then we check if the answer is Delhi because we know the question is India, right? Of course, this is just for example's sake. In real world, like the way once you're building it, then probably you're going to add some other operations to it. And if the answer is correct, in the result one, we want to display that your answer is correct. If the answer is not correct, we want to display some HTML instead with the span style of with color red saying that your answer is incorrect, and we want to display the correct answer as well using text. So we have ended up using val, text and HTML all three in this example. So let's quickly run it in the browser and see how it works. So let me give the answer is Calcutta and submit it. Okay, seems like I made a syntax error. Let me just quickly fix it. It says it is over here. Okay, yeah, this should fix it. Let's suppose I type in Calcutta. So as we wanted it to do in case of a incorrect answer, your answer is incorrect, right? Is displayed over here, and the answer tag, the answer is displayed. Let's look at the HTML if it produced right. So this did not have content inside it before we started, but now it does. Now it does have content inside it. And let's try for the correct one. If I answer as Delhi, your answer is correct. If I reload and I type in Delhi, it will say your answer is correct. It is added to this. You can in fact see the DOM manipulation happening in front of your eyes by like. So if you notice here, the result is empty. Let me type it in and just keep observing this part. Did you see it? Did you see the change? This was not present. Let me do it again. This is empty right now. There's nothing inside it. I type in Delhi, I submit, and then suddenly there is a small animation that you can see. It blinked for a second. That is done by the Chrome DevTools. That is not essentially related to JavaScript as such, but it's just an effect that you can see, sort of see that the DOM was manipulated. You can see it taking effect in front of your eyes. Let me in fact show you the incorrect one as well. Keep observing the section here. So if you saw, both of them got affected now. Let's see it again. You see, both of them got affected. Result as well as answer. So yeah, I mean, it just talks about the same thing, that we can set the text, HTML or value. Now, the other thing is that we can also add or remove DOM elements, which is also very, very powerful, that you can add to your HTML after the HTML has been served. So till now what we were doing was that we made an HTML document and it was fixed, right? Like you could not add more p tags to it, more div tags to it. But let's think about something like the Facebook feed for a second. It's an infinite feed, or any of the social network feed. As you keep on scrolling down, it just never ends. It's infinite. So what is happening over there? Essentially, Facebook is adding more and more div tags, or stories as they call it, or posts. But that is essentially HTML code, and it keeps on adding, 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 and adding. It's an infinite list. It keeps creating. So it does that through JavaScript, where JavaScript creates the DOM and it just keeps on adding to the feed infinitely. And then there are a couple of methods available for doing this. So after, before, append, prepend, and remove. All of them work in different ways. So let's dive into some code and see each of them in action. So I'm going to just comment this out because we don't need it anymore. Okay, I think I might be having some. So let's remove this as well. And okay, let me take this and place it over here. Okay, so what I've done is that I have created 4 boxes on my web page. So here are 4 boxes: after, before, append, and prepend. I'm going to show examples of each of the function using each of these boxes. So they are present over here, and the styling has been done somewhere over here. So there is a color box. It has a width, it has a height, it has a border, margin, and then there is an after tag on it, which gives it the color. So the color is given to it by us. Now each of the boxes has a click event on it. So once I click on it, it will append something to itself, which is going to be again a div tag, which is going to be another box. So clicking on one of the boxes will add another box to it. For the purpose of demonstration, let me even remove the other boxes so that we can only concentrate on one box at a time. So I'll even comment this out, only one box. And the box that I'm going to attach, it is going to have the class as attached, and the color is going to be yellow. Okay, so if you saw, this particular thing got attached to it. If I click again, another one happens. Now why they're appearing vertically like this, that's more of a matter of CSS. But if you look at the DOM, let's concentrate on the DOM. We had this div tag, right? So what after does is that it attaches it within that particular div tag. So after will, boxes will come after this text. So it is not outside of the div tag. That's a different one. It is inside the div tag in itself that we selected. So dot after dot append. And it will keep on adding, keep on adding, keep on adding, keep on adding. Okay, let me show it to you again. Observe the DOM. So let's look at it. The div tag, the HTML that I wanted to add, was added after this. In fact, I can show you another example. So let's actually do it like this. Okay, yeah. With UL again, it will add to itself. Right, 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 right. So it is not outside, it is inside. Very, very important to remember that. Okay, let's remove this, and then let's go to before. What happens with before? So in before again, we're just going to call this method dot before, as we just saw on the slide. and let's see what happens. Okay, so now it gets appended before this. It gets appended before. Let's see what is happening over here. Now before is outside the box. It is no longer inside. It's not attaching to this text. So this can be very confusing for a beginner. It adds an element after the specified element, right? But after does it on within the tag that you have selected. Before does it outside the tag. Let's go to the next one, which is append. So append will again append it. So after and append are pretty much similar here, that they're appending within the color box. They're appending within the original div tag. So if you read the definition, it adds an element as last child to the specified element. So it keeps adding as children, one after the other. Let's talk about prepend, and let's unmute this. So prepend will attach before the element. So it will add parents to this particular element. So please notice whether it is inside that particular tag that you are appending to, that you are calling append on, or it is outside. That's the primary difference between after, before, append, and prepend. So another very useful jQuery method that is available to us to manipulate properties and attributes on our HTML DOM is the attribute AttributeAttr method. It allows us to either get the values or set the values on our a tags or image tags or anything that for that matter, any kind of tag. But one sort of usefulness would be sort of, let's suppose we have a list of links and we want to, based on some condition, replace them with something else, or we want to change it to something else. So let's start with an example. So let's suppose you have an href tag, okay, and the target here is blank. Target here is, and this is yahoo.com, Yahoo, and let's suppose there is a button over here. ID is something. It is, let's call it link fix. So we can remove all of this code, or let's just keep it over there, and we can just simply write fresh over here, and it will be something like stack link fix dot click function, and we will say, hey, find all the attributes, find all the a tags, and set the target to blank. So let's see what happens. So if you notice, yahoo.com, the target is not blank, it is self. If we click on this, yahoo.com changes right there in front of your eyes. The target attribute changes. If this was self and even this was self, then doing this would change both of them. Another thing that we can do is we can just get the values first for target. Let's just first console.log these values and see what we get. Go to console. Right, we got the first match. In fact, let's make it as blank. Let's see what happens if we have two different sorts of values. If we click on fix my links, and again we get self. So I think it would pick on the first one then. So in case you have multiple matches, it would pick on the first one. So let's set a condition saying that if target value equal to self, take the a tag and set the attribute to blank. So you can see that it set the attribute to blank. Now interestingly, it set it to the last one. It did not set it for Google. So only for the last one will it, okay, wait. Right. So it will set for both of them. And if this was blank, so then this does not work, because if there are multiple matches, so it will stop at the first one. It will stop at the first one. And because it will not find it to be blank, or we can do something else. We can say, because we have learned the HTML tag, we can say $a dot HTML. We can see, or we can do this. We can do a console.log out of this and see which one it did actually select. So we have clicked on this. Let's do this. Okay, so this one essentially gives us for both of them. Let's try this instead. Let's see what this results in. Right? So it returns just the first one. So because this condition is not setting true, even though there is a document with self, so it's very important to remember this when dealing with AttributeAttr, that if you're searching for something using it, it will only go to the first one. But if you're setting something using it, it will set all of the elements which match. So if I just did it outside, then even this one would be fixed. Otherwise, it will go individually to each and every A when you're getting the value. Now, there are various methods which are available on top of this. One of them is RemoveAttribute. So it removes an attribute from the selected element. Then there is hasClass, which checks if a certain element has a certain class or not. There is addClass, there is removeClass, there is toggleClass. So toggleClass is basically, it will check if the class is present. If it is not, it will add. If it is present, it will remove. Then there is the prop as well, which is kind of introduced in jQuery 1.6, and attribute, the AttributeAttr method is internally calls prop, and it gets the value of a property for the first element in a set of matched elements. So this is what we were observing, that it was getting the first element in a set of matched elements, or set one or more properties for every matched element. So this is where the behavior is coming from, because AttributeAttr is internally calling prop. So and it says very explicitly over here, it gets the value of a property for the first element, only the first element in a set of matched elements, or sets one or more properties for every matched element. So that is significantly different. Now let's quickly run a couple of examples for this one. Let's see what remove attribute and each one of these method does for a quick demonstration purpose. Okay. For removing attribute, okay. Let's suppose it had an ID and for some reason we wanted to remove the ID attribute. So we can do it in this way. We can say remove AttributeAttr and we can give it ID, and let's see if it removes it or not. So it is currently saying ID. Click on fix my links. The ID element is removed. If we told it to remove hrefs are removed. See, now the links don't have any hrefs. We can tell it to remove target as well, and they will be removed too. Next is hasClass. So you need to pass it the name of a class. So let's suppose we call it color box, we call it after, and we say dot hasClass after equal to true. Then we want to do something which is available as add class. So then let's add a class, or rather let's remove class. I'll do remove class after add class golden link. So let's make a class called as golden link. Just a simple demonstration. We're going to give it the color of gold by removing the already present one. So we're going to check if it has the class after. If it sets out to be true, then we're going to remove the class after and we're going to add the class gold link. So as you can see, there is a slight difference already in the way Google is being represented over here. The CSS has changed. Now let's click on fix my links. If you observe, that goes away and the golden link class has been applied. If I made a mistake in the style one, yeah, I made a spelling mistake. Let's try it out now. Now observe that it has been given to both of them, not just one, because I'm using a general one, right? I'm adding class and everything. So it might be a good idea to not do this, but instead select, do it like this, and then go for the class after dot remove class after dot add class golden link. So this way we are trying to add it only to the Google A tag and not the Yahoo A tag. So you see, only add it to the golden A tag because we selected a particular one. So we said $dot after, remove the class and then add another class to it, and that gets modified. Okay, the next one we can do is $A toggle class after. So now we are saying that the elements which have after class, remove it, the ones that do not, add it. So you see how it switched from one to the other. We can also add another one. We can add another one called as golden link. Both of them become golden, and we can add another one saying toggle class color box. So this is based on chaining. I'm chaining multiple effects together. So now it's a complete switch from Google to Yahoo. Let me actually zoom in. So if you notice, the DOM is changing accordingly every time. I can do this a number of times. This will keep happening. Right, so as you can see in the example that I've just shown, this follows a slightly different example. Perhaps you can try it out at your end and see the results, or you can try out the example that I gave you. Now, another one is to clone, and again, very useful. You can sort of clone an element and you can insert it after or before, or basically do something with it. You want to clone, let's suppose, one particular link, or you want to clone an HTML tag. So this is what helps you out with. So let's change this to clone my links, and let's remove this. Let's remove this as well. And what we will do is we'll say a dot clone, going to be insert after. So we can just insert it after the A tag itself. So let's see how this works. So why did that happen? Because it selected all the A tags, not just the first one. So it's selecting all the A tags and cloning all of them. So instead I could, let's suppose, create an ID saying original or master, and we can say hashtag master dot clone, insert after, let's suppose ID is clones, and I could do this, insert after hashtag clones. Now it gets inserted after hashtag clones. Let's see if it append or after works on this. Okay, after doesn't seem to work. Let's see if append works on it. Oh right, so insert after, that wouldn't work. So it keeps on adding. And then there is another one. Let's suppose you have some sort of event set on it and any sort of data set on it. Then you need to set clone, you need to pass it a boolean of true. By default it's false, to copy the events as well. So in case it's a button that you're copying, or it's one of those boxes that we just made and you're trying to copy that box and you want even the subsequent boxes to respond to it, then you would need to set clone as true so that even those boxes would have the event. So let's try it out with this. I just noticed that this needs to be after, not append. And I think now it should append after the box, not inside it. So we will try to see that we clone this and we're going to insert after this one. We are going to insert after, let's do it after our color box. Now if I click on this box, nothing happens. If I click on this, another set of boxes come up. Let me reload, let me zoom out. Okay, one box, multiple boxes. But if I click on any of the duplicate boxes, nothing happens. Click on this box, nothing happens. So then I need to set this as true. Now what will happen is, two boxes, if I click on this, either one of them, it will replicate. Even this box, it replicates. So that's just to add the event handler. Let me show you this one again. This is after. Now these are coming after it, right? These are coming outside. Moving on to the next one. There are two approaches to move an element around the DOM. One is placing the matched element relative to another element, and the other one is placing an element relative to the matched elements. So one, basically what it does is that it takes the matched element and places it relative to another element. Or you take an element or you place an element which is relative to the matched element. And that is where append and append to come into the picture. So there is a slight difference between the two. Now jQuery provides us with something very useful which is called as a $.each. It's a replacement for the traditional for in or for loop in JavaScript and helps us out quite a bit actually. So let's do a quick demonstration of this over here. And the way this would work is that I would define an array of let's suppose num list is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm going to say $.each. I'm going to pass it the num list function. It's going to be the index and the value, and we can simply just do a console.log index and value. Let's see what the result is. Let's look at the console. 0 is 1, 1 is 2, 2 is 3, 3 is 4, 4 and 5, 5 and 6. So it allows you to iterate without using those initializations of I is equal to 0, increment decrement operator. You can just loop over using a for each. It gives you the index and the value that you're looping over. It can be pretty useful, especially if you're doing any sort of functional programming. And naturally, it will also allow you to loop over a set of any sort of list elements. So that would be something very typically useful in the context of DOM or document object manipulation. If you want to, let's suppose, loop over an entire list of LIs, then this is going to be super useful. So let's try this out quickly. So I have a list over here. Let me take it out, place it over here. Let me mute this and let me mute this as well. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to select all the LIs and I'm going to call .each on them, and I'm going to, it's going to give me an index and an element. I'm going to check if element, I'm going to first just do this. Let's just see what is inside each of our elements and then take further action. Okay, let's see what element we are getting first and then take further action. Right, so we're getting li tags, each one of them. So you need to keep trying out things, okay? And I mean, that's very, very sort of important. There will be failures, there will be chances that certain things are not working, but don't be discouraged by that. I mean, if you think about it, it's quickly, right? You try a couple of times, one thing doesn't work, but something else does, and that gives you a better understanding of what you're dealing with. So let's look at what type of thing it is that we are getting over here. So it's an object. So, and of type li. So another way to deal with this is with this variable in JavaScript. Let's try it out. Let's see what we get. Now we get Google, Yahoo and Amazon. We can also check for has class, golden link, doesn't. So let's do it for each of the elements. Let's do a toggle class. So each of the elements get a toggle class. Let's look at what happened. This is the UL we are dealing with. Each of the li get a golden link toggle class. Of course, the A tag in itself has a blue color, so that overrides it. In case somebody is confused that this is still looking as blue and not yellow, it's just that this overrides the outside one. So we iterated over each of the loops, and essentially we ended up toggling the classes to a golden link. Another one is EQ, which selects from the set of matched elements at a specific time. So let's suppose we only wanted to add it to the second one and not the first one. So the way we would do this is that, forget this for a second. This is just basically looping over the entire thing. Instead, what we could do is that we could add some code like this, and we could say equals to dot toggle class golden link. So 2 gets selected, 2 being it being 0 index naturally. Now 1, and this one will select 0. If we set it at an index which is not available, it just does nothing. So it allows us to select a particular one from a list of elements that we might match. So it is actually acting as a filter, right? It is filtering out the other elements that we do not want to touch or we do not want to manipulate. Now there is another function available which is called filter in itself, and you can pass it a selector. So .eq basically takes the specified index. So you need to consider the fact that this is sort of like an array. This is sort of like an array that is returned over here. And we are saying that we want just the second element of the array or the first for a particular one. But let's suppose our matching criteria is a little different than this. Something around the fact that I want to select an li which has the class. I'm going to filter out all the li's which have a class of middle. So let's suppose, and let's suppose we actually add some styling for the middle one. Let's suppose we add it color as light blue, and once we get to it, we want to do a toggle class of the golden link. Okay, seems like we ran into some trouble. Right, I missed the dot over here because I want to, right. So you see this middle two get selected. So EQ just allows us to select one, but if you wanted to select multiple within a set, so if you had 4 and you need to select 2, then you will go for something like filter where all the elements which specify a certain criteria. With EQ, you are fixed to one element because it can only take one index at a time, naturally. And you need to know which index as well. Over here, you are sort of with filter, you're setting a condition that, hey, give me all the elements which have the middle class set on them, which might be multiple elements, as in this case. Then there is something called as has, which checks for certain things and accordingly sets the CSS, or you can, do further operations on it. So in this case, it will check for descendants, and if it finds a matched element based on the descendant, then it will do certain thing. So let's suppose over here the example is that if my li in turn has another set of ul tags, then I probably want to set a css on it. Okay, I want to probably set a css on it. So let's actually try out this example in itself. I'll remove this, and let's suppose the last one is not this. Instead it is something like another ul inside it, and it says something like, so a lot of times websites have different web addresses based on the country that they're serving. So Amazon France, Amazon.in, and let's suppose there is another one called Amazon.us. Now what we want to do is that we want to check if it has a UL, okay, this li has a ul, then I want to set an attribute of background color as light gray, let's suppose, or let's just make it style. I want to set a style. We will set the background color as light gray. Let's run this. Let me try it with CSS. So we set it up, but right, this one works. So maybe the background color property doesn't work on UL tags. So this works, and we have set the background border as this. And now, yeah, let's try over here if background color. Yeah, I think I made a spelling mistake somewhere. Let me try it out again. Let's try the same color as light blue. Yeah, so this works. Now please notice that it's not applying on the UL, but it is applying at the LI level. It is not applying on the child, it is applying on the parent in itself. We're filtering it out on the basis of which particular element do we want to attack. What not does is that it removes from the set of matched elements. So quite simple. Let's suppose I want to do this for everything which is not in the middle. So not is like the opposite of has. Like over here, the first and the third one are selected, the others are ignored. So jQuery also has support for data APIs, which has been introduced in HTML5, which lets you set data attributes or get data attributes from the HTML that you might have set up. So let's have a look at an example. So let me comment this out. Now I have two buttons here. One will attach data to a dev element and the other one will remove it. And these click events are set on the same. Instead of test object, we can do it something like this. Data, let's suppose it is cart 200 and we want to get the data of cart. This out. Let's see what we get. So we have the dev element over here. No, wait, we are talking about this particular dev element. Let's add something to it. Let's add an ID tag, data example, and let's use it like that because then it will not confuse with the other one. So we need to set the data on this particular div tag, right? We will simply pass it an object like this, and then on clicking the button 2, we will get the data associated with it. So let's do this. Let's remove these errors. Assuming this has worked, once we click on this, it should display a value of 200 in the console, and so it does. So this is how you can use data attribute, and you can use it on to set any number of things over here. In fact, so let's suppose I set items, then I do this, and then I can also do it for items. And once I reload, I can attach it to them, move this, and then it shows both of them. So 200 for cart and 300 for item. Thank you so much. Bye.